Could we turn all the lights up, please? Thank you. Just a little psychological warmth in here. Just a little reprieve. Thank you for your great observation of our country during these Olympic Games. Thank you for those of you that watched. Thanks for those who participated. As you know, I'm on the Olympic Committee, so I was really just happy with all of the participation that we saw. I really think that the Olympic Games are just such a great spirit of cooperation, not just as a nation, but as throughout the world, gathering together and allowing sport to be something that we can use to bring us together, even in healthy competition, to be able to see the glory of humanity exalted in some way, and to be able to say that there's a whole lot more that unites us than divides us. And it's just a really special thing. U.S. did a very good job, maybe not as well as some might have liked, but I think we have a lot to bring home, whether it's hardware or good stories, just to be able to celebrate and to say, wow, it was another great spirit that these games brought to us in Italy this year. I don't want to spoil what happened this morning, but it was really great. Okay. I'd like to focus on one of our Olympians in particular, Alyssa Liu, a 20-year-old, as you know, an Olympian who's currently enrolled at UCLA, a college student, who has a really remarkable story. Whether you know about her or not, there's something that I think she has captured in her Olympic gold, her 2 medals that she's bringing home, that maybe captures the Olympic spirit. And I feel like in the season of Lent, it's important for us to continue to have good stories to remind us. We've got really 2 good stories in our gospel today that I think in some ways capture what it is to be someone who lives in the spirit of Lent as well. First, about Alyssa. As you know, she's an Olympian, 20 years old, as I said, UCLA, was one who was already very accomplished before she came to Italy to compete in this year's games. She was somebody who, at the age of 13, had already won national championships. And somebody who grew up in the era of Nancy Kerrigan and Kristi Yamaguchi, it was a part of me that was just really excited to see what this young woman might do. What you may not know is that at 13, 14, 15, 16, as she was competing and winning time and time again, as she went to the Olympics and was in 6th place as a 16-year-old, she took a break from the sport, posting on Instagram, hey, this is just a message to say that I'm backing away from a sport that I'm a leader in. Shocked a lot of people because she wasn't happy. And I would say that perhaps she wasn't healthy, even though she was at the top of her game and the sky was the limit as far as her competition went. She took a step back because she recognized that what she was doing wasn't satisfying her, even though it might have looked like it was on the ice, even though the scores might have said that she was somebody that had a lot of potential and was successful. And I think that you and I, during the season of Lent, have an opportunity to take a step back, not to walk away from whatever it is that God has entrusted to us, school, work, family, other obligations, but just to take a spiritual step back through our prayer, penance, and almsgiving, and to reconsider what it is that we're doing, what it is that we're about. I think that Alyssa, for many young people, and perhaps for those of us that aren't so young, is a model for maybe reconsidering the purpose behind what it is that we're doing. And I think that if we go back to the garden, we see God wanting to establish a place of peace, a place of dominion. And if you and I go back to the garden during these days, that maybe we can reclaim what was lost. Maybe not now, maybe not even in this life, but to recognize that paradise was always ours, and we're destined to receive it because we have a loving God that bestows it upon us, that wants us to inherit it. So we go back to Genesis, and we see God give dominion to Adam and Eve over all the other creatures, that he establishes it in wonder. And he says, please, go, be fertile and multiply. Allow your life to have fecundity, to bear great fruit, not just in children, but in how you live and how it is that you share in life and joy with one another. But I'm asking you this, do not eat of this tree and its fruit. just this one. What's hard about that is that perhaps in our human tendency, or perhaps when you've read Genesis, you might see that God is limiting your freedom. That God is saying, you can't do this. And there might be part of you that bristles, and especially in our American spirit, I can do what I want, right? Women's team winning gold over Canada, can do what I want, right? Bobsled team going down at 80 miles an hour or something ridiculous, I can do what I want, right? I can be able to conquer the human spirit. So don't tell me what to do. Don't limit my freedom, or don't tread on me, as we hear from the Gadsden Purchase, right? In that way, there's that spirit that perhaps the ferocity even, that I don't want to be trampled upon, or I don't want to have anybody tell me what to do, even God. But we have to be very careful, because what the enemy wants to do, and what he does depicted as a snake in the garden, is he starts to call and to like maybe poke at that part of us that might resist what it is that God has told us to do. God doesn't want you to be like him. That's why he's limiting your freedom. That's why he's curtailing the true freedom that you really could have if you just eat of this fruit. And Adam and Eve take the bait. And what happens is that they receive a certain knowledge, yes. But what they lose is far greater than anything that they could have imagined that could have been theirs through the lies of Satan. And I think that you and I fall into that sometimes. And understandably, through our human weakness, we think that everything that is ours for the choosing will make us happy. But when you have so much freedom that you don't know what to choose, and some of us have lived this way, do we really feel free, or do we feel out of control? If you can do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do with no limits, does that end up really exalting yourself? Or does it end up hurting yourself and other people? So we put parameters back on, and we allow ourselves to see what is it that really makes us fully alive, fully human. Jesus models this for us in the gospel today because he's God. He can do whatever he wants. And yet he goes into the desert for 40 days because he wants, in a fulfillment of the 40 years of the desert that his ancestors and ours endured through their traversing after their freedom from slavery in Egypt, that as they're wandering in the desert, they're trying to trust in the Lord and what God has in store for them, a promised land. A land flowing with milk and honey. And so Jesus, in his way, as he's preparing for his ministry, says no to certain things, fasts, refrains, so that he might be able to have a head and a heart clear, to be able to give of his life with great joy, with great freedom. Satan wants to capitalize on that. He says, why don't you turn these stones into bread? You're hungry. Why don't you fling yourself down and allow the angels to capture you? Why don't you allow this kingdom to be yours, because you are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords? Jesus doesn't take the bait, but instead he rebukes Satan and continues to say, my true freedom rests when I'm in line with what God wants for me. And Satan goes away because he's like, no, Jesus, I'll deal with you later. But Jesus has already conquered that for you and for me, and he wants to show us, he wants to help us to reevaluate our lives and to be able to ask ourselves, for what am I living? Or for whom? What is the purpose of my life? What brings me real joy? What brings me real and lasting freedom? What brings me the happiness when I lay down on my pillow and recognize that I have a life worth living? Think about it. Is that better when you're just doing whatever you want whenever you want it? Or do you feel more fulfilled when you're allowing your life to be a gift for others? When you're serving, when you're sacrificing, when you're sensing what it is that God wants you to do through your prayer? I think that what's so great about Alyssa's return to the sport was that she did it on her own terms. She said, I'm going to be the one that's in design of my routine and my diet. I'm the one that's going to allow the sport to be one that is filled with a lot of joy. And I'm going to break some rules, so to speak, because of authenticity, because of being the real me. And as she was dancing quite well to Donna Summer on this past week, what I was marveling at wasn't so much the 7 triples that she did. I'm not very technical with the sport, as you may know, and the toe loops and all those types of triple axels and such, but it instead was the ease and the flow of her dance. And then the little flair that she did and some of just the little moves that were really more performance than it was technical. And there was a great joy on her face, and she says that I consider myself not so much an athlete as I do an artist. And she says that the only reason that I do this is because of the joy that I can bring to people. That if it wasn't a gift for others, I wouldn't do it anymore. And I think that's what perhaps God wants your life to be too. Even if no one recognizes it, even if you don't have a medal put over your shoulders, even if you don't get to jump on the podium and say expletives into the TV on national television, to be able to do that with a real spirit of freedom, what I invite you to consider during this Lent is, what if God is the one that truly bestows that freedom? And that perhaps the parameters that he puts on your freedom are not just to restrict you, but to enhance you into the fullest freedom and fullest joy that you could ever imagine. To restore to you that garden which was lost, and to be able to have that communion with God here now. I don't know what that means for you in particular, and I think that you and I need to take an extra step to be able to take that step back and reevaluate, how am I living my life? And what needs to change so that I might have that great ease and flow of skating through life, even through difficulties, even through people judging me and evaluating my performance? How is it that I might be able to do that with God and allow life to be one great dance on the ice? I think that perhaps that's what these readings suggest to us, and that's perhaps what God wants for us more than anything, any of the evaluation or the maybe things that we might give up or do during Lent. He wants us to find that joy again.